to introduce Jim Currivan, please.
I'll tell you if I can hear you.
Can you hear me? I have people standing by to raise their hands if I drift off, okay? And my bride, Teresa, has a refreshment in case I lose my voice. Good evening. You know, I really feel humbled to be able to present my story of the remembrance of my career that ran from 1959 to actually now, participating in my fifth. But I retired in '94. First time I heard of BLM, I was at the bulletin board at Humboldt State in 1959. Okay, go to Lumberjacks. I looked at the bulletin board and they had a summer position for forestry aid. It was with BLM. And I said, what's a BLM? And everybody was forest service in our class. So they said, well, Doc Cooper was a soil scientist and he did range surveys out in Nevada, I think Winnemucca or someplace like that. So I talked to him and he says, it was a good outfit, I had a good experience with him. So I signed up and Pete Peterson, or Emmanuel Pete Peterson, if any of you remember him, and Lauren Welcome interviewed me, and a week later I got a job offer at GS4 this time. I worked 3 years for the Forest Service at a 3, and I did not think I would get to a 14 ever. So this was a good job to me at that time, and I also got $10 a day when we were in the field. Forest Service, you didn't get that. I reported to the Sacramento District Office. It was in the old California Fruit Building in Skid Row in downtown Sacramento. It was really bad. But I went up to the 4th floor, met the district manager, Jens Jensen. It was Jens, 2 foresters, and 1 range con, and 2 secretaries. That was the Sacramento District Office. We went out and we cruised the Ponderosa Pine, Sugar Pine, and the Mullet Wood Country. I helped them with their cut. I think the cut was 3 million board feet. And they showed me how to cruise, and I had not had that in college yet. It was a good experience. Jens was a great mentor. He was the kind who would, just kind of nurse you along. He said, Jim, you've got at least 2 summers left working, if you want, for the Bureau. Move around, get different experience. So I took him when I was where I went to Susanville as a forestry aide. There they only had 1 forester. I don't know if anybody remembers Bill Patterson. He and the district manager at that time, and thankfully I can't remember his name, but he was a little bit funny. They had a PA system. They had a PA system. They could talk to all the troops at one time. There was all these cubbyhole offices. And he would announce things, but then he also had a way of listening in to each office when people were talking. And this Bill would say, he would talk about him for a while, and then he'd get up to us, I hope you're listening. And they didn't. I was kind of worried about how my evaluation was going to be at the end of the Senate. But Bill was sick. He had like valley fever or something. He was sick most of the time. So I laid out a timber sale on my own and and did a Christmas tree sale. And I would report each night to him so he'd make sure I came out of the field. And I think, then we did I need some work with the fire crew. And he said, dream up something. I said, okay, we'll do like the old KV where they prune the trees up to 18 feet. So we'll take them out there and we'll prune up all the trees along the highway and cut out the non-dominant trees. And fire crew loved it. They didn't have any fires for a while, and so they could look back and see how the trees look so pretty down the highway. And I felt good about that. That's what they now call shaded fire break, I think. But they didn't have that.
How old were you, Jim?
20, 21, I think. Susanville was a little town. They didn't have the prison nearby, and so it was very quaint, and you didn't have to go far for a good meal. Next thing, I tried to move around. I got a job as a cadastral survey assistant. I remember going out on a 3-man crew. We had like a Chevy 1-ton truck with a cab over, and we lived in that for half the summer. We'd have 10 days on, 4 days off, and we went everywhere. They fished, and my boss, Pettingill, was a good fisherman. And so we ate well. I couldn't catch a fish. I'm the only guy that's been to Alaska and has not caught a fish. One of the other crew members was Larry Evans, and anybody that's been in Alaska recently, Larry, he stayed on, and he finally retired as the chief cadastral surveyor for Alaska. I returned back after I graduated. One moment, please. When I graduated, Jens hired me at the Sacramento district office. I was amazed when I went in there. We're now moved to 650 Capitol Mall, and that was the federal building. They had the judges, the prisoner holding places, the whole works, and Border Patrol and Army Corps of Engineers. And I was amazed when I walked in the office there. They had 20, 25 people. I thought, this place is really growing. They had 5 foresters, 3 range cons, and they also had the Northern Field Group. Before that, they had California broke into 2 parts, Northern and Southern. And these were the animal examiners, the mineral specialists that would evaluate the glory holes that the claimants would have. And if they didn't have a good enough gold or whatever it was, or mineral thereafter, they had to leave. Many of them were living on the ground. I remember two engineers that came into the office, just started, they came out of Oregon. One was Ed Hasty, and the other one was Fred Wolf. Also was Pharrell Parker. You saw his books over there. He's become an accomplished author. And another man named Don Worth. He was a geologist also that was doing evaluations. Hope I'm not leaving anybody out. I try to put the names in here. Pretty soon Jens went to Alaska, and Kurt Hammond came from Nevada. Russ Penny was our state director, and he had also come from Nevada. A lot of good people come from Nevada. Remember Kurt getting the whole staff together and went over the importance of the, what do they call it that time, 1964 Multiple Use Act. That was the beginning part where the Bureau was not going to be just the caretakers of the public domain. We're going to have some say. That's an abbreviated version of it, but he was pretty pumped about it, and he was right. We started being able to say no to certain disposal actions. In forestry, we had Gene Brown, who was in the state office. Gene wouldn't let an acre of, if it had timber on it, he wouldn't let it go. He found every reason in the book. And so the forestry program stayed intact for quite a while. I understand now some of it's been traded or was in loose selection. He always argued that, hey, wait a minute, when you got the state in loose selection, bunch of acreage, that came from the desert country. Don't come up north here and take it out of the timber. District soon moved to their own office. They had built, I don't think it was especially built, but it was built for an office type with a staff. It was out of Folsom. And it was great because we could park there. We'd have to park in downtown Sacramento. We also had the GSA motor pool cars right there. They were assigned to the district. Before we had to go 8 blocks in the heat or rain or whatever weather it was, check out your vehicle for whatever work you're going to do, and then turn it back in when you came back from the field, and then worry about a ride one way or the other. So this was good. I was in the southern Motherlode area, and there's 3 areas at that time, southern, northern, and I think over there in the Hollister country.
Diablo.
Who?
Diablo.
Oh, Diablo, okay. We didn't pay much attention to that. We went on one range survey. We ran out of forestry money, so they got the foresters out there, and we had to do a range survey on cheatgrass. And it tells you about how useless that survey was. We were out there, and that was the hottest son of a gun. You'd get under one of those, what do they call Mormon teas? I don't know. It was sparsely vegetated. You'd get under there like a roadrunner and eat your lunch. Tom Allen became the area manager. Kurt Hammett brought him over from Carson City. He was the area manager there. And Tom and I hit it off. We've been good friends ever since. But I was only there for a couple months working with Tom, and then I was selected to go to Ukiah as an area manager. Let's see, Pete Van Zanden and I reported the same day. Both area managers. He had the North Coast with all the timber. I had a nice area with some pine in it and a lot of recreation, and Cow Mountain recreation right nearby. And so that was good. Other people that showed up was Bill Lamb about a year or 2 later, and he was the, I think, the head of the range staff on the district. And then after that, 2 newbies. I don't know if that was their first job or not, was it? Was Bo McClure and Terry Woosley. Was that your first forestry? Okay. Anyhow, sorry, Bo and Terry had the job of working on timber trespass. The Bureau had been cut all the corners. If you had a 40, well, it was kind of round by the time other people got to it. So they had to go track down as many trespassers and then work on a prosecution case, and then that was going to end. They only had it for a certain time, I believe, and then that was it, because we spent a lot of time trying to chase people down. Sometimes we collected for, I know, situations where they weren't the logger, but that's okay. The government got the money. I had kind of an unwritten rule just within myself that 5 years in an office was enough. After that, it was 1 year, one more time. And so I wanted to go to Washington. But that was supposed to be where you could least advance. And so I put in for several jobs, and I got a call from Cal Ballin. Cal was old-time BLM. I don't know how many jobs he had before, but he was a couple of years from retirement. But the nicest guy to work for. And this was the Office of Evaluations, and I don't know if they still have that or not. But, okay, I thought it was good. I thought more companies in the public and the sector should have that. What it was is, we were kind of a, what do you call them at the hotel? Concierge, that take care of everybody's room business and all that. We did that kind of work. We take out specialists in the field like cadastral survey, engineering, safety, or something like that. They go to the state office, and then they would do 2 districts. And they would sit down and evaluate their like kind in the office and see how things were going, if they were following the annual work plan and that. They would write up a report, and then our job was to kind of prove it, to see that was this really a problem or was this just right? And then we'd take it back and massage it with I can't get all these things straight. These deputies, deputy directors or whatever they were the high ups, and they had the staff under them. They would review it and pass muster. It would go to George Turcott, who was the associate director. I think that's right. Is that the associate director? And if he signed off on it and something had to be corrected, our job was to follow up on it. I remember, there was kind of a tit for tat with some of the staff. They didn't want to say that the program wasn't just perfect, and how our job was to just get it fixed. And it was good feedback from management. Cal was retiring, and I had been there 2 years. I didn't really care for the guy that might be the associate or the assistant, and I wanted out. And so I was able to get a job in the budget office under Pete Culp. I don't know if some of you remember Pete, but he was great to work for. We had a staff of 5 or 6, I think. John Gregg, Harold Grayson, some of Joe Jukes, and I was there for 3 years. And I wanted to get to the field, and so I put in for district manager job. Let's see, I'm actually not out of sequence here. Oh, when I was in budget, they had assigned to us a couple of states. I was fortunate to get California, Oregon, and Utah. We just followed the annual work plan with their program analyst, and that was good. Now I also got land and water conservation fund, but in those days I remember they weren't doing much. I mean, you could hardly get them to go out and work on something, even though you had a lot of money available. But that was it, and then some engineering. There was so often I remember that. Let's see, what was his name? Hostroff, who was the head of cadastral.
Yeah.
I'd see him in the Bernie Hostroff. Yeah, I'd see him in the street, and he'd say, "Hey, Currivan, I saw your name on some survey notes. I'm just doing." I said, "You're just getting around to it now." They were about 10 years old. But so I've been putting in for several jobs. And I remember getting a call from Dan Baker from Wyoming. I thought, "Hey, this is great. He offered me Warren, Wyoming." I thought I dreamed on heaven, right, John? Yeah. And so he signed me up. I had a name in the paper and all the bio stuff, and signed up for a management team meeting. Well, I'd been working with my older brother, and we had a business in San Francisco with a mortuary. My father died 2 years before. Key man, couldn't keep up, couldn't work anymore. It was too much for my brother. We talked about 6 months, every other night almost, how to work with the staff and that sort of thing. And so they really wanted me to come back, and they gave me everything I wanted. So I had to write a resignation letter and come back. Well, I go in and tell Pete about it first. He says, "Let's go see Turcott." Went up there. He was the nicest guy. I thought they might be mad or something. because I've been 16 years in the Bureau, a lot of training and all that stuff. Well, he said, let's go see Kurt. And that was Kurt Berkman at that time. He too was nice. Just, I mean, I was amazed. So we chit-chatted for a while, and they said, Andy Ongroff, the personnel guy, was there. He came in, and Kurt said, well, who's next on the list? John Krakowski. That's good. I like John. We spent 2 weeks together, got to know each other very well. We were in a watershed thing in Arizona, and on the weekends we went to Mexico and had a good time. And let's see, so I was happy for that. And then Berkman kept talking, and he says, I think he was kind of glad that somebody went from the Bureau back into private industry for some reason. But he said, well, remember one thing. Watch your attorneys and watch your CPAs. He says, if I paid attention to everything they did, I would have been broke years ago. So what I did, we were the only non-union mortuary in San Francisco, and there's about 15 mortuaries. I won't tell any mortuary jokes or anything. But the job entailed quite a bit. We needed to be a licensed mortuary because everybody else was union. And my dad, from when he started in 45, unions became strong in San Francisco in the 50s. I hope I'm not offending any union people here, but he says, and I said, Dad, why don't you join the union? We won't have all these pickets every so often and that. And he says, when they employ my black brethren and let them into the mortuary, or into the union, I'll join them. See, they wouldn't let blacks be in the mortuary in those years. As a result, they had such stupid rules, you couldn't have an apprentice unless you had a master journeyman right there with it. Well, why would you hire 2 people? They eventually went out of business. I kind of keep track of what's going on with them. But anyhow, that's why we needed a licensed embalmer. So I served my 2 years apprenticeship under my brother's license, worked 40 hours a week so I could honestly say I did it, and I went to school at the same time. It was kind of a long, bad memory, but you didn't have a lot of home life, but we were raising 4 girls at the same time. And my wife, Rosemary, who many of you might have known in yesteryear, was with me, backed me 100%. So we were there for 9 years. Everything turned to promises, got lost, forgotten, and it was a bad deal. And so we stopped, absolutely stopped. Sold everything, and I was unemployed for 3 months. Have you ever been unemployed without a full check? Raise your hand if you have. Okay. You can sympathize with those people that went through this last recession. I felt bad for them. I was only unemployed for 3 months, but it still hurts. And when you start feeling, God, why can't I get a job? Why doesn't anybody recognize my talent and all that? So, lo and behold, Bo McClure gives me a call to see if I want to be the wilderness program leader for Arizona. Heck yeah. So I worked for Bo for 3 years and also for Dean Bibles. And those were good years. I did that, well, I think we had 84 wilderness study areas. They consolidated, before I got there, consolidated into 5 EISs. And my job was kind of keep poking the districts to get them done. And then when they did get them done, review them to see that they didn't have major flaws in it. And then they were going to go to the congressional delegation. In between that time, in I think 87, we had major tragedies in the Bureau. In Delta, Colorado, the helicopter went up, got into wires, I heard, and killed all 4 of them. in the Steens Mountain. Plane went up, went into the ground up there, and I killed 5 or 6 people, some foresters, BLM. The managers, I guess, on the ground had a tough time. I mean, it was like chaos in their districts. So I know Dean Bibles and Tom Allen got together to form a team to write a manual. And we got Josh Warburton out of Burns, where he was the manager up there. And then a guy in Colorado, but his name escapes me. I tried to think who it was. We got together, went to Washington. They told us what they wanted in the manual. And gradually we worked it out. They called on me because of my funeral director's experience. And it was a good choice because they don't think about a lot of things that are very sensitive. And so we came up with this manual and got a lot of help from Bo. I know Dean was overseeing it. And I want to show it to you because I want to make sure that everybody got a copy of this. Well, I hope they still use it because before I started on this, there's no use in inventing the wheel. We searched around every agency. Nobody had anything like it. Now I don't know whether they copied it.
Can you show us the cover?
We made it blue on
Every
purpose.
one of us had it still when I retired 2 years ago.
Good. That makes me feel better. When they have a casualty, it's called the Employee Casualty Guide for Managers and Supervisors. And all they have to do, if they have a tragedy, start reading. They haven't read it before.
Now you read it before.
Pardon me?
Read it before.
Yes, yeah, because there's a lot to know. But we have no copyright on it, and our names aren't even on it. So that was very kind of fulfilling that I could use my past in the other profession to help the Bureau with this. I remember when I was in business, things were kind of slow. So I thought, no, I kept track of people in the Bureau. Called John Perkuski one day and he started laughing. He says, funny you should ask. He says, the cowboys are out on the lawn on their horses with pickets. I don't think they like my decision. Or words to that effect. But I always considered the Bureau my family. When we first started out, it must have been right at the Kennedy time in '62 or so. We were adding people. All these guys were just out. All guys at that time. Sorry, ladies, but we're all having babies, and they needed babysitters. If we got together, we had our home brew that we made in college. We're still doing that. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And the women made quilts, and the quilts were baby quilts, and they had their name in them. And so we got a couple of those through the years, and they're cherished by my daughters. But that was the BLM family. When we moved to Folsom, guys would rent a U-Haul. The government didn't pay a thing for going out there, even though I think it was more than 25 miles. But they would just everybody pitch in and load up a truck and move out to their house out there. When I was doing the wilderness study areas in Arizona, there wasn't a lot of resistance, like in Nevada here. They're a little bit off the rails. I don't know if they still have a wilderness study area. Wilderness. They have wilderness, I know. But I don't know if the wilderness study areas have been converted to wilderness or not. And I don't see why, but hey, I'm not a politician and I'm not going to be. it was softened up, I think, a lot for those 84 wilderness study areas by Dean. He and probably Bo did work on the Arizona Strip.